Hi folks, Mr. Bruno here, and welcome back to another Cartoon Theory. Now today's question is, has Vicky's hatred for Timmy gone too far? Well, yes. I'm pretty sure in the beginning, even in the Oh Yeah cartoon shorts, her character was supposed to be more of a bossy teenager and maybe a groupie girl. That's why she has a lot of posters of Chip Skylark in her bedroom, and this is why we had an episode like Boys in the Band. But as the show went on, this got transformed more into a love of torturing Timmy and the other children, with a few teenage aspects kind of intact. Her love of bossing Timmy around got so extreme in the first 3 seasons that by the time it reached the 4th season, she was willing to kill Timmy over making a mess in her house, and as well as enticing judges for the beauty pageant to let her win. This is a clear case of Flanderization. If you don't know what it is, I'll give you a brief explanation according to Wikipedia. Flanderization is the process through which a fictional, formally complex character's essential traits are oversimplified to being their entire personality, or at least exaggerated while other traits remain, over the course of a serial work. This term, of course, comes from The Simpsons, but rather than focus on Ned Flanders, let's talk a bit about Cosmo from The Fairly OddParents, because he's a perfect example. In the Oh Yeah cartoons shorts, he was more smart and had a bit of a Phil Hartman sound-alike voice. And in the first couple of seasons of The Fairly OddParents, Cosmo started out as a slightly dim-witted but loving fairy god husband to Wanda. But as the show went on, he got stupider and stupider and stupider. According to Butch Hartman, the channel Fairy video I'll link in the description, he said they wanted to make the fairies more sillier and mess up some of Timmy's wishes, which explains why they wrote a lot more with the fairies as opposed to the side characters. Whether or not this was needed, I don't know. I kind of understand what Butch was saying, but you know, there are better ways to go about writing humor than just making your character dumber and dumber. You see how this relates back to Vicky and the show as a whole. They wanted to keep topping themselves in terms of humor, so they made her more evil and willing to do more extreme things to make Timmy miserable, which led to the things she did in Homewrecker and Miss Dimsdale. But that didn't stop the Fairly OddParents from continuing the show for another few years. The big problem with all this is that Flanderization might help comedy-wise in terms of making the jokes more memorable and more extreme and topping what they already did, but it's a pretty big leap backwards in the story department. Having a character who loves to make kids miserable is not interesting. Having a character who will stop at nothing to destroy Timmy is not interesting. Having a character who will do nothing to get money is not interesting. It'd be more interesting if Vicky turned down her babysitting job at this point, because she loves doing it so much that you'd be willing to bet that she'd fall in love with Timmy all because of this. It's no surprise, no mystery, not anything. So many of her plot lines whenever she shows up in the episode has to do with her torturing Timmy. I've seen it more than once, and I've seen it, the great logical step in it for the tonsillitis episode was to kill Timmy. And on top of story problems, I don't think the Flanderization fits the comedy or a character either. Not when the series has Vicky in as many episodes as she does. If 99% of the time, whatever she does, whenever she shows up, has something to do with her torturing Timmy, it's not a surprise. They'll have to be clever with what she does, or it won't work, and story-wise, it's just a waste, because you know what will happen. Vicky will want to torture Timmy, but Timmy will win in the end. Duh! However, I don't think anybody wanted Vicky's love for torturing Timmy to go away entirely. It's an important part of her character, and has given us some great episodes throughout the show's run. I just wish they toned it down a bit, because it's gone a little too far. If they pulled it back and reset it to a much lesser place, then they can keep topping themselves for a little while longer when the show ran for 10 seasons. Some of the post-season 3 episodes that focus on Vicky are the ones that may involve her torturing Timmy, but sometimes in a very reduced manner. I think there are a lot of other interesting aspects to her character. The fact that she makes Tootie's birthdays miserable. The fact that she falls in love with certain episodes. The fact that she goes to high school. The fact that she once had a pet turtle. I think there are other interesting aspects to her character that hardly ever get expanded on. Instead, we just get Vicky with axes and chainsaws to demand money. I think the biggest thing they should have cut down is the torturing Timmy sequences that aren't about Vicky, but have her in a small role. I don't need her to pop in and say to Timmy, "twerp," in every episode. She could say and or do something different. If you're going to use Vicky's love for torturing Timmy to make her a good antagonist, or to tell some really good jokes that focus primarily on her, that's fine. But just to have her constantly do it in an episode like Certifiable Super Sitter, which had nothing to do with her torturing Timmy, I think that's the biggest misstep they ever took with her character. It's all about mixing things up a bit. It's about creating some suspense into her character. It's about making the show a lot less predictable and better both comedically and story-wise. So yes, I think they went too far with Vicky's hatred for Timmy, and they should have toned it down a lot. Well, that's all for now. See you in the next video.